welcome everybody again. If you've already been welcomed by Mike, next episode and installment of DataChat Live. Joining me as always is Mike Fong from the European side of our world. Mike, what's been going on over in London?
What's been going on over here? We're in what I say? I guess we're in full flow. You know, just selling. What are you mouthing at me?
I'm just wondering what full flow means. That's not
what does full flow mean? I don't know. Same old, really. Just keeping up to date with various data governance and privacy goings on. There've been a few, big moves. Not big moves. That sounds too positive. There've been a few big events in the last month since we last spoke. And actually, the way I keep up to date with these is one of the resources that I'd love to share with our audience today. You know, it's definitely not secret information. In fact, all these finds are actually public information, and that's, we're here to share. This is a podcast, and we want to share information and keep our audience up to date on all the various resources that are available at our fingertips.
Nice. Yeah, a big part of what we want to talk about today is, in fact, the world of privacy regulation, and some of the fines that have been hit. In fact, there's some big news out of the US that we want to talk about here in a little bit. But Mike, why don't I let you start? I know that in fact, let's go ahead and start with sharing that list. That, as you said, most people are probably aware of this, but the GDPR enforcement has been going now for what, 3 years? Is that where we're at?
I think we're on 4.
Okay, geez, yeah. I mean, so I remember first rolled out, and we were talking springtime of 2018. We're now summer of 2022. So yeah, we're looking in excess of 4 years. In that 4 years, what does enforcement look like? And are we talking about just a whole lot of minor fines? Are we talking just a very small number of really big ones? What does that look like from your side of the world?
Well, why don't you let me share my screen, and I will show you a great website that has all the answers that you could wish for. So this is a resource that is a really useful resource for anyone that's kind of working in the privacy space and just wants to generally keep on top. This is enforcementtracker.com, and it has essentially a list of all the GDPR enforcement actions and fines across the entire continent.
Wow.
Sorry, was that a question, Cameron?
No, that was a wow.
That's a wow.
A lot going on over there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a table. It's not that glorious. You can filter by country, date, size of fine. I find these statistics actually slightly more interesting. Just the cumulative totals, really. And the cumulative total is now 1.671 billion euros.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a few large and notable jumps here. These are those large fines for the tech giants that happened, in the last year or two. That is, I think that big one is an Amazon one. I think one of Amazon and two of them's Google, something along those lines. But yeah, and you can see this second chart here. This is just number of fines. So you can see they've kind of reached a terminal velocity, maybe. They've just a constant speed. I'm thinking back to my physics lessons at school. Constant speed, constant rate of fines.
So there's definitely been not only a significant total volume, but also I'm seeing just that uptick there. There was a definite step change just a year or so ago. Am I reading that right?
That's right. Yeah. Let me zoom in for your old eyes, Cameron. So yeah, so it really was July last year, or just before June last year, where it suddenly went boom. 600 million, I should say, for I believe Amazon.
Yeah. So when people are getting hit by these fines, obviously there's a lot to GDPR. There's different ways in which violations can happen. As far as what you've been working on with the customers you interact with over there, what are some of the mistakes or missteps that you're seeing that could potentially leave people open to these type of fines and enforcement?
Yeah, well, it's very much what I would say. And for me, it's very easy to say the principles. And we'll go for the principles first, and then actually we'll talk through what each of those means in reality. We'll do it one by one. So the first principle is, checking that GDPR even applies to you, right? So for example, if you're a Swiss company and you're only dealing with Swiss customers, then actually Switzerland is not part of the EU. So technically, Switzerland isn't bound by the GDPR. Now, of course, there are data adequacy agreements, and there are simply, everyone around you is bound by GDPR. So for ease and for convenience, you might join in just for standardization's sake. But that's the first step, deciding which jurisdictions your customers belong to, what websites do you have, and even that in itself is quite a large undertaking. If you imagine yourself as, say, a Unilever or any other kind of large multi-brand, multinational, you'd probably have to be maybe in the IT team in a webmaster, or you'd have to be some kind of overlord to actually know all of your business units and all of their regional footsteps. So even that in itself is not an easy task. After that, the next step then, of course, is to actually identify all of your web footprint. And I don't just mean we have, a UK page, we have a Germany page, and we have a, America page. It literally means we have, 5,000 web pages on this content management system. We've got another 400 web pages on a legacy content management system. We've got all these platforms around the world. Again, no easy task. There's often a situation where many of our customers find out for the first time that they've got web pages that they own that they didn't even know they owned. So a crawling technology is really useful just to get that huge inventory. Alternatively, talking to your web teams, and if they've got a really good hold, really excellent management of all their content management systems and assets, that can be a great start as well.
Nice.
And this is,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is sort of the planning stage. After that, you need to choose a content management platform, implement it, and then that's the first test. Do you have a content management platform on 100% of your pages? That's that's a mistake we see frequently. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here. That's a mistake we see frequently. And then, of course, once the content management platform is actually implemented, there is also the fact that maybe it's not implemented correctly. It might be on every page, but does it actually, does it actually block marketing tags? Have you decided that an analytics tag is required or not required in a given jurisdiction? Is all the technical wiring correct? Have you got your tags categorized correctly? Your tags and your cookies categorized correctly? So there is a lot of ongoing. And actually, I've got a before and after example to show you as well.
Ooh, Cameron,
I hope I'm not monopolizing the airtime today.
Part of the reason why you are the star guest today, Mike, is because you know this stuff better than just about anybody, and being there in Europe and all the different changes that have evolved there, I think you guys are well in advance and ahead of what we're doing here in North America. We can definitely dive into some of that, but I want to see some of your examples.
Cool. Yeah. So here's a before and after, right? So this is the Observe Point platform. This is a website, a public-facing website that we scanned on July the 14th. And if I scroll down, we can see that they've got OneTrust on 100 out of the 100 pages scanned. Excellent. They've got Google Tag Manager, and then they've got nothing else, right? So they've actually got a really clean, excellent implementation. Now, a lot of people would think, job done, high five, right? Let's get some beers. Well, fast forward to August 2022, August the 14th. And we'll just let this report load again. And lo and behold, we've got a Google Ads marketing and a Google Video Heartbeat. So even just in the space of a month, on just 100 pages randomly scanned, we have marketing popping up nowhere. And remember, this is a cookies not accepted scan. So this means that this organization has probably unknowingly broken GDPR. So I think there's one thing I found a couple of weeks ago, and I really wanted to show that over time, content management, MarTech tagging, it just degrades, right? Things go bad over time. I'm sure anyone who's working the tech space for a while will realize that.
Yeah, it's isn't that a law of physics? Entropy, things just fall apart.
Yep. I call it the law of human nature. Things fall apart.
Things still falling apart. Nice. Well, and so it's interesting that you bring up OneTrust as the consent management platform. I didn't say that wrong. Because if anybody's doing this right, it should be them. And I've actually spent a while looking at their website and how they've actually done a pretty good job of implementing not only their own technology, but just making sure they're buttoned up. It led me to put together a list of what are the things that people need to be making sure of, not just is your consent management platform working, is it there or not, is it working or not, but kind of almost a maturity curve as far as if I'm in North America, and you did some great research on this, where I think it was 25% or less of North American brands have a consent management banner today, and it was a little bit higher in Europe, but still a little bit lower than we would expect. Yeah. So what happens if I'm not even to that point yet? And one of the things I want to share on is that list. And I want to walk the audience through just this real quick checklist. It's what I think it was the 6 things you should be looking at from the most basic to the most advanced. And using Zoom's sharing ability, I should be able to do this. Open system preferences to share. Wow, that's going to create a problem. I'll tell you, the fun just keeps rolling this morning. All right. Give me a second to pull this up. Mike, while I'm doing that, I know that you've had some other examples that you've looked at over the years. Is it just about opt-in versus opt-out? Are there other states people should be looking at? How should people thinking about the way they're checking these type of things to see if they do have these gaps?
Sure, yeah. So let me share my screen again. So here is a different account. A very similar example. I've actually circled the issue here just for for audience to bring their eyes. And again, we're not picking on OneTrust. In fact, OneTrust is an excellent technology. The implementation mistakes that we're highlighting today, they're not at all anything negative towards OneTrust. It definitely is the way the technology has been set up. It's been implemented. Remember, this is still a very new space in technology, in marketing implementations, or you might not call them marketing implementations anymore. You might call them privacy technology implementations. But either way, these are brand new. So it's, 4 years old, still kind of new, especially in the US. But what we're seeing here is another example where an organization did not do that first step that I suggested, which was that you need to know what all your websites, what all your web pages are, so that you can run a complete implementation of your chosen CMP. And there are others. There's TrustArc. There's our friends over at Dudomi. There are probably, I would say, 4 or 5 large CMP providers. OneTrust has is one of the large players. But you're right. It's not just a state of OneTrust helping customers opt in or opt out. And in my previous example, it's not just a situation where if you have advertising when you're opted out, then it's against GDPR. There's also all the permutations. If your website wishes to offer customers the choice where you can have opt-in, opt-out, marketing only, analytics only, or marketing and analytics but not personalization, all of these permutations are going to interact with each other in hard to predict ways. And that's why regression testing on a regular basis through all of those different permutations in an automated way is definitely something that you need or that we recommend customers invest in. So this screenshot here, not only do we have the issue that some pages don't actually have their consent management platform, it's also the issue that some pages have marketing tags, even when, again, cookies are all denied. Now, it's no coincidence that 11 pages don't have the CMP and, less than 11 pages have marketing tags. So the pages with some MarTech are a subset of the 11 pages that do not have the CMP running. So this is, I've seen this so many times. and it just keeps happening over and over again. And that's why we keep bleating on about it, to be honest.
That is true, yes. Now, I think I'm able to share now on Zoom, so I'll go ahead and share out those 6 points I was talking about. And one of them is exactly what you just described there. But I want to take even a further step back and talk about simply, is your privacy policy set? Whether you're required to have a consent management platform or not, making sure that privacy policy is there and on every page is important.
Cameron, I'm just going to interrupt you there. We do have a question in the chat. The question comes from KG. So
Yeah.
Hi, KG. Thank you for joining. And his or her question is, does this platform support that recommended regression testing, or is it used after regression testing is done elsewhere and just validates? So I think the answer, if I'm understanding the question correctly, KG, you're asking whether we can do testing before you publish to live or after you publish to live. And the answer is both. We help many of our customers check their live websites in order to ensure what is there now, right? What is their current obligation? What is the current exposure? We can help customers do that very quickly. We call that a discovery audit. And then there is, once you've discovered, all your what's the phrase? All your warts and all. We also help you actually go and prevent those by working in your staging environments or your dev or QA tag management containers. We really help you find those issues so that your team can go forward and solve those in a proactive way rather than reactive. So thank you for the question.
The last thing you want to do is have not checked it and push something broken live and only find it out hours or days or weeks later. So yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree. You should be checking beforehand as well as ongoing. In fact, to that point, what I want to do real quickly here is not only share with you these questions, but run through exactly what you just talked about, Mike, and that's a discovery audit. Now, we found a lot of really bad sites that are doing this very poorly, whether it's missing the do not sell link for compliance to California law, whether it's problems with the CMP, as you mentioned, failure to comply with GDPR. Lots of problems pop up. Now, I figured if anybody's doing this well, it's our friends over at OneTrust. They have their own consent management platform that they've deployed. They're the leader in data privacy space. And so what I wanted to do is simply just jump over to their website. I can see, yes, indeed, there at the bottom, there is a consent banner, and I can either jump into specific things, or I can actually get more prescriptive and tell it exactly what categories I am and am not okay with. I can also scroll to the bottom of the page and see that down here, they do have a do not sell link. So there's the California law compliance and a privacy notice and a cookie notice. And what we want to understand is, are they checking all the boxes? Now, like I said, if anybody's doing this right, it's going to be OneTrust. And so what we did is exactly that. This is a live website. This is public available information. And we said, just go scan 1,000 pages. And the reason, just a little insider baseball here, the reason we did 1,000 pages is because they were doing it so well on the top 200, 300, 400 pages that we didn't find any problems at all. We really had to dig into their site just to find anything wrong.
Man, you have a vendetta against them. You have to really
no, it's not a vendetta. It tells you just how well they're doing this. And with any site, I don't think I've ever found a website anywhere where I can't crawl deep enough and find some problems. So this is more for illustrative purposes more than anything else. We actually love the folks over at OneTrust. A lot of our customers are OneTrust customers, and so a lot of the validation that's happening on the ObservePoint platform is for this consent management platform. But the first step, as I was mentioning earlier, and let's just jump back to that list for reference, is that privacy policy link there, and is the do not share link there? Now, we can do a spot check, and I can see, yes, indeed, on the homepage, those are there. Is it on every page? Am I compliant on every page? So what I did is I ran just a high-level discovery audit, 1,000 pages crawled on the OneTrust main website, public website. And if I jump over here into the variable inventory, I've set up a quick look that says, look for those exact links, those exact threads that say, is my privacy notice there? And is my do not sell my personal information there? And if I click to privacy notice first, that's the question we were trying to ask. So 935 of those pages have that on there. Unfortunately, there's a very small percentage, 62 of those 1,000 pages that don't. And I can actually dive in and see exactly all the pages on which that may be missing. So one of those things where gaps exist everywhere, it's probably either a new template's being used or a campaign landing page. A lot of times as we roll out things that aren't part of the regular website, we tend to overlook some of those just core elements or footers or things like that. So if I was working over at OneTrust, I'd say, okay, let me find these 62 pages, go update them to the right template, and now I've got coverage on that privacy notice. Similarly, for do not sell, I want to make sure I'm in compliance with California law, and I can see, once again, 923, the vast majority of these all have that in place, but there's 74 URLs where either it's not there, and I don't even necessarily say they're broken, maybe they're using a different string or a different link that's going somewhere else. So I'd want to check these 74 to see, okay, why is it not detecting this specific string, do not sell my personal information? Is it missing, in which case I want to add it in? Is it not following a standard, so I can update it to make sure it matches the rest of the website? Those two checks alone are critical for any company here in the United States, at very least. I know just about every website in the world and every privacy jurisdiction requires a privacy policy or a privacy notice, but that do not sell is becoming more and more critical here in the United States.
And Cameron, just to be clear, this is a CCPA requirement, correct, that we're looking at? Is it the case, and obviously you're based in the US, I'm here in EMEA, is it the case that for CCPA, those two notices or those two buttons or functions must be available on every single page? Is that the kind of the intent?
I'm not a lawyer, so I won't give legal advice, but my understanding is that you absolutely want the privacy policy, privacy notice on every page, not just here in the US, but pretty much everywhere. Right. For that California law, do not sell, and they've changed the wording, so sometimes it's do not sell, sometimes it's do not share. Regardless, I would recommend that it's right down there in the global footer and on every page as well. All of the brands we work with have their own in-house counsel or legal advisors. Talk with them to make sure you're in compliance, but at very least, know where it isn't, so you can understand what gaps you may have and you may want to address to fit that strict standard. Okay, so that's just the baseline though. That's just, is the two links that should be on most pages or all pages, are they there and clickable? The next thing that I want to understand is that consent banner tag showing up. Does the consent banner load no matter what page on the website I first enter? So I give my customers, my visitors, the opportunity to opt in. Now, as we mentioned with the OneTrust website, there's that banner right at the bottom, and it shows up just about everywhere I could, personally click through. I clicked through on dozens of pages and it was there. But rather than just spot check this and spend a lot of my own time, I wanted to see, what about 1,000 pages? And so jumping back to that discovery audit and going to our technology or tag inventory report, I can see right there at the top, OneTrust CMP. So that's the tag that loads that banner. And I can see, if I go from percent to number, that 992. So almost every single page of these 1,000, it was there, present, and interactable. Is that a word? Oh, I'll go with it. But there were 8 pages, and I can click on this and see exactly which 8 pages that didn't exist on. Now, once again, it may be appropriate in certain scenarios that doesn't have to be there. I know that there are instances when you're not only looking at a public website, which is what we're looking at now, but you're looking behind authentication walls, logins. A lot of times those aren't needed. So I would just want to become familiar with these 8 pages. Is there a reason my banner isn't loading? And if it should be, how do I quickly remediate that so I close that gap as well? But it's not just, is the banner loading too? I'm going to continue to jump back and forth here. It's, does that banner effectively block or allow cookies and tags based on the consent the user has said? So if I come in here into the OneTrust platform and I say, you know what, I'm not cool with analytics, I'm not cool with advertising or personalization, I'm going to click to disable all. Is that being respected? And so I'm actually going to jump back one more time into the audit, and I ran a secondary audit. So I'm going to pop out of this one. And I did one where I was opted out of all those settings. So I'm simulating that exact environment I just created as a user. And as I jump in and I look to see what tags are still loading even after I opted out, scroll. Oh, I need to scroll the whole page. There we go. I can still see that there is about a dozen or so tags that are loading. And now on most pages, those aren't showing up. So that may be partly a factor of where that banner is and isn't at, but more appropriately, I can still see that there are 46 pages that are loading Google Ads remarketing tags, and another 46 pages, potentially the same 46, that are loading the Google Universal Analytics tags. And in a scenario in which I, as a user, have said, I'm not okay with opting in. I want you to not be measuring me. I want you to not be retargeting me. Those are gaps that we'd at least want to look at and see, is that an area where I could be out of compliance, or are there reasons for that state to exist? Mike, is this something, it sounds a lot like the examples you went through earlier. Is this something you see quite a bit over on your side of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is that, our technology helps customers to validate, but you can only validate the decisions that your businesses have already made, right? Working in conjunction, marketing, legal, and technology, digital teams, this is how you're going to get to that state of happiness.
That's right. And you're probably sick of me saying it, but I keep saying this may not be bad or may not be wrong, but you want to know about it. Once again, we're not here to give legal advice. We're simply here to uncover what the state truly is of what's happening on the website. Whether or not this is or isn't in compliance with GDPR stipulations, California stipulations, there's 5 total states in the US that have already rolled out their own privacy regulations, and another, I think, dozen on the table. So you're going to want to understand how your standards and how your legal guidance is for your own business. All Observe Point's here to do is to help you understand what is the reality, what is happening, so you know how to best close the gaps where they may exist. One other set of questions that I do want to jump to, and this starts to get a little bit beyond what we had set up at the beginning, is where are new and or unapproved cookies and technologies showing up? So it's one thing to say, okay, what is the state now? But as you mentioned, you did an audit time over time, month over month, I think is what you said. And I may have a list in my CMP of here are all of the approved cookies. Well, I want to know, where are things showing up that weren't on that original list? It may be that they're not bad cookies, but they weren't actually part of my consent management settings and part of my original set list. So I'm going to jump back to the standard discovery audit. And in this case, I can see, I scroll down a little bit, I've got 8 unapproved cookies and 4 unapproved tags that showed up on this discovery audit. So what I did the same thing. I ran the audit for OneTrust, waited a month or 2, and then ran it again. And I can see 8 call them new cookies that weren't part of my original standards list. And as I drill in there, I can see exactly which cookies these are. I can see exactly which pages they exist on. And so in some instances, I may think, okay, well, trustweek.onetrust.com. That's a new microsite or subdomain on my website. That's perfectly okay. I just didn't know about it months ago, so it wasn't part of that initial list. I want to come in here. I want to add it to a consent category to make it approved, and then I'm off and running, and I'm no longer flagged by that one. Whereas there may be some others, and this is just me not knowing their website, adsymptotic.com. That may or may not be an acceptable cookie. And so I may want to dig in a little bit more, find out who owns that and the tag that's associated to it. A way to bubble to the surface anything that's not part of that standard list that I've already categorized, that I've already given my stamp of approval saying, yes, these things should be on my website. Anything else, at least let me know so I can make that determination going forward. And then the last part of that is not only understanding what is approved and unapproved tags and cookies, which is what we're mostly concerned about when we talk about consent management, but also, are there any sort of geographical considerations? And this is where I want to end off today. Mike, I know that there's been a lot of discussion we've had about international data transfers. Those laws are continually in flux and being discussed, especially there in Europe. But as I come in and I see, okay, where is my data where's my data potentially going? Where are those network requests coming from, and where could these data responses be going? I can see, well, France, Ireland, and Netherlands. Those weren't on my original list of places my data could or should go. Now, I may see, okay, optanon.blogcore.com. I don't know exactly what that is, but I know the Optanon domain is part of the OneTrust brand. So maybe that Ireland one is okay. And once again, I can just come in here and say, add that to a consent category. And now Ireland and that specific domain are okay. Whereas others, Netherlands, I know Eloqua, but I don't know that we're using it still. And I definitely don't know why my data is being sent to the Netherlands. I want to dig in further. I guess the theme of all of this is we want to be able to shine a light on where things could be gaps, where things could be falling apart, so you can quickly close those gaps. We're not necessarily saying this is wrong or this is right. We're giving you the ability to make that determination for yourself. Any thoughts on especially that data transfer component, Mike?
Nothing much from me, but we do have another question in the chat. This one's from Andy Mott. Do we have time for some more questions, Cameron, or
Yeah, if people need to sign up, this will be recorded and available on demand, but I am happy to answer questions.
Cool, let's go for it. So the question is, can observe points scan from a specific region, specific IP address? To clarify the question, GDPR does not necessarily apply to pages if the visitor is not geographically located within a GDPR country. OneTrust even offers geo rules to determine whether to apply consent rules. Therefore, can I scan a website from, say, Germany or California so that the scan results are relevant and specific to specific geographies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yes, if you use the advanced settings, in fact, I'll just do it for this audit that I'm in already. The advanced settings within an observe point audit do allow you to decide the location you're auditing from. So by default, we're out of North America, we're observe points based, but there are proxies that exist around the world. And so we have the ability to go in, for example, one of the scans I did for OneTrust was saying, do it from inside of Germany. Because I know that if they're doing it in Germany, the default state should be opted out, and only if I explicitly choose to opt in am I going to see additional things. So I came in here and I said, okay, rerun this exact same audit, but do it as though I were in Frankfurt, Germany. And then right there, I can rerun the scan and see if the state is different. So there are proxies. Running it from an exact IP address, I don't think that's possible. But Mike, you probably have a lot more experience in people using the proxy service than even I do.
Yeah, we've got for enterprise organizations, we do have an even more granular option to essentially run your audits from anywhere. So there are organizations that want to run from a specific state in the US. There are organizations that want to run from specific cities. We're thinking the Vatican, for example, or certain parts of, say, Asia, East Asia, like China. So very, very granular for the enterprise tier. And Cameron, we're coming to the end of our time. I know that very recently there was a step change in the situation in CCPA in terms of the level of actual enforcement. So do you want to talk us through what's happened there very recently?
Indeed, there was. So Sephora, for those of you that are familiar with the brand, Sephora is a very large makeup and personal care products company, became the first public CCPA enforcement with a fine of 1.2 million. If I'm not mistaken, that happened just last week. But this is a big marker where before there was a lot of huffing and puffing by the Attorney General over there in California. Now it's actually come out and said, no, we're going to start levying fines. And in this case, it's a 7-figure fine. So I think this is just the signal of more things to come. We are going to see more of this enforcement happening, and especially as we move into next year where the adjusted rules around CCPA to CPRA updates. We talked about the difference between, for example, do not sell versus do not share, and a number of other things. I think you're going to start seeing that really gain steam. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that same list that you had, Mike, as far as GDPR and all the massive fines that you guys are seeing over there. But remember, this is just California's law. There are now 5 state laws, if I can remember them off the top of my head: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, and here in my home state of Utah. All 5 of those have their own enacted regulations that go into enforcement at various points within the coming quarters. So you're going to want to be buttoned up because enforcement isn't just coming, it's now here, and Sephora is the first one to bear the brunt of that.
Does it feel like a kind of unofficial soft grace period has ended? And because that's what we had in with GDPR, we had, I think it was May the 25th, 2018, where that was the line in the sand, and then it went kind of quiet for a bit when everyone was, running around like headless chickens, and then suddenly it was right. Enforcement is happening now. You guys have had long enough to figure this out amongst yourselves. Do you feel like that's the mood in this kind of CCPA enforcement authorities now?
Absolutely, that's exactly what we're feeling. I think they kept encouraging. In fact, we had people that were speaking at public conferences like the IAPP's conference last spring, saying this is coming. You're already in the time frame in which we could enforce. We're not, get your act together. And I think the grace period has run out. In fact, just to get a sense of this, I ran a quick audit on Sephora's public website just to see what's actually happening there. I looked for the privacy policy and the do not sell. So talk about our list, just those first 2 basic things. Now, the good news is for privacy policy, it was there. I had 500 pages, 499 of them. One page didn't load properly, so 100% of the pages that were scanned for that privacy policy did have it. Unfortunately, and we saw this in the press releases, part of what they were being dinged for is the way their do not sell link existed, where it existed, what browsers it worked on. And a quick scan of those 500 pages shows me that 14 of the 500 or 499 did not have that do not sell value on it. So whether it's there and not working or not there at all, these are all things that lead to, in this case, a 7-figure fine. So if you want to avoid that, you want to not only, as we mentioned at the very beginning, test before you launch to make sure the right things are there, but also continue to validate after the fact just to make sure as things get updated and changed, you don't have these type of gaps on your website.
It's interesting you say that. I didn't even know browser differences was still an issue. I thought we'd moved beyond those days. I thought, you know, Chrome and Firefox and Safari and even Edge had modernized to the point where they were all kind of reading from the same hymn book.
You would think so, but and in fact, for those of you that were paying attention, I actually demo out of Safari because I like to use our tool in the non-standard browser so I can find any problems or issues. And so I've just gotten in the habit of using a different browser. And even in our own tool and technology, we recognize that there's minor differences when you're in Safari versus Chrome versus Firefox. So if that's the case for our application, sure enough, it's going to be the case on a lot of websites. So you don't just want to test in one place, you want to trial on a couple of different experiences so you have a comprehensive view.
And that just reinforces the need for, you know, time and cost efficient automated regression testing, right? No one's got the time to test, you know, in the 4 main browsers plus 10 minor browsers that Cameron, you seem to use.
I don't know that Safari is a minor browser, but it's certainly not got the market share that Chrome does. All right, any other questions that we see over in the chat pod there, Mike?
We have one more question from Tyrone Battle. What are your thoughts regarding the use of the GPC settings in Firefox browsers?
GPC. I'm sure I've heard of this. I'm just spacing on what GPC stands for.
Let's just do it. I believe that is to do, Tyrone, do correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe type global privacy control. So is that regarding the query parameters stuff in Firefox?
That may be part of it, but I'm going to have to brush up on my GPC. Maybe we'll save that for the next DataChat Live, and we'll actually bring it up and walk through the settings. I know that a few of our customers have brought it to our attention and talked about it and how that affects the browsing experience, just the way the website functions. So we'll take a look at that and maybe make it a focus for our next DataChat Live.
Cool. Tyrone, we'll get back to you. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Mike, as always, for participating. And we look forward to seeing everybody on next month's DataChat Live.
Thank you very much. Bye.